we'll begin. So, hello and welcome to this week's Founders Night. It would be great if I get a little bit of feedback, if anybody or if all of you can hear us. And then I'll start with a brief intro. So we are the PionierGarage, which is the students group for entrepreneurship and startups at the KIT. That's the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology in Karlsruhe in Germany. And our today's guest is the CTO and co-founder of Sleek. And Sleek has been mentioned as one of the AI 50, which are America's 50 most promising AI companies. And additionally, he has held multiple positions at tech companies like Google, LinkedIn, and Microsoft, and is a former Stanford graduate. So I'm really happy to welcome Gaurav Aggarwal. Hi, Gaurav.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for having me. Really exciting.
Yeah,
I'm really excited.
Great to have you. So in this first half an hour of an interview, we wanted to give people just a little bit of background information about you and show people who you actually are and what you stand for. And then after this half an hour, we will switch into the Zoom room where people can actually join us. So if you're listening to this, you can join us in the Zoom room and ask Gaurav your personal questions, and we'll try to organize that. So just to give people a brief overview about who you are as a person, could you just briefly sum up what is your story? What is it that you're coming from in the least number of sentences that you can do it?
I think in one sentence, I'm an engineer turned entrepreneur. So I'm an explorer. I like to try different things. Coming from like India, I have a very standard story. I did my undergrad in India, spent 20 years of my life in India, then wanted to work in all these big tech companies. They were really attracted to like a kid, like back in India, it was fascinating stuff, working on cutting edge technologies. That's where I went to the Valley and wanted to start a company. And I'll get into like why I wanted to start a company. Went to Stanford, and that's where I met with my co-founder and ex-colleague Spanna, and we started Sleek from Stanford. And it's been like close to 2 years now. So enjoying the journey.
Yeah, pretty cool. But I doubt that that's an ordinary story. Being a Forbes 30 under 30 probably isn't that common.
Yeah, so that's not something you can plan for. That happens on its own. To be honest, like that happens on its own. With a lot of things has to align for you for that to happen.
Yeah. Did you plan on becoming a founder or founding your own company, or was that more of the opportunity presented itself and then you took it?
I think I had this fascination of being a founder. As I was saying, like I think I had this sort of thought in my head for like a decade or so that all these big company has these processes which I believed were stopping me or like slowing me down for my speed. And I thought like if I could be my own thing, start my own thing, I'll do things in a different way. And that was my initial, when I was like a kid, I would say that was my thought process. And that was the fascination towards starting something. Plus the cool tech was always, okay, that's mind blowing. I get to work on something and, call it, okay, I built this and have fun while doing it. That's amazing. I think that sounds like the best career to have.
Yeah.
And that was my motivation. And I was actually looking for ideas. I was not like, a PhD who was working on something and that field was growing and I stumbled upon an idea and I started. That's not how it happened.
Okay, so it was more of the overlap of fascinations from tech and entrepreneurship that made you the entrepreneur that you once imagined yourself to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So you held, like I already mentioned, you held a lot of different positions at different tech companies like Google, LinkedIn, and Microsoft. Do you think that the experience that you got there is important for you becoming a founder, or that was necessary for you to start your own company?
I think, yeah, definitely. I think I learned so many things, like the discipline, first of all, how things are being done.
Yeah.
And I know people will differ. Some people want to say, hey, drop out and start something of your own. That's also a way. And I have a few friends who have done it.
Yeah.
But there are pros and cons towards it. I think some things I learned on, say Google's payroll. They learn me how to hire people. They learn me how to manage a team. They learn me how to lead people. And I had great mentors and managers who, were a role model for me, and I followed them. They are still in my network. It's just like amazing group of, the IQ per square feet was very high, the places I was. And I learned a lot from all my peers and mentors.
Okay, yeah, especially since those companies are probably more entrepreneurial minded than a lot of other big companies in this domain.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think the kind of openness, I would say, being a new grad or an intern, I could ask a question to, say, Larry and Sergey, which was amazing. Like there was used to be this TGF thing in Google, where you could walk up to a mic and ask any question to founders, which is mind blowing. That's the kind of openness I think deserves like a hat off,
Yeah, that's cool. I can imagine that does a lot to bring you nearer to founding your own company and doing so successfully.
Definitely, yeah.
Your curriculum reads a little flawless in my opinion. So you graduated, you were really at the top of your class, you worked at all those cool positions in those tech companies, and then you founded your own company and became a Forbes 30 under 30. And I wanted to ask you, is there anything that you look back on and that you can say, okay, that has been a big failure of mine, or that has maybe even been my favorite failure of every failure that I have ever encountered, because I have learned something from it that is now necessary for my everyday life or my founding experience?
Interesting. Yeah. Well, first of all, I've had a lot of failures. I have a lot of failures. So if you see, like I have like say 10 success, I probably had 50 failures, which are not on my LinkedIn. But that's how this works. So you have to, keep trying and increase your chances. So that's how it works.
Yeah.
In terms of learning, I think there's a lot of learning for different ways of doing things. I went into Stanford, like I applied, I was not accepted. I applied again, and then I went to. So like I learned how, how the process is being done, the navigation of process, as example.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of been learning, even in fundraising. My co-founder spent more time on fundraising, but like there's a lot of learning how things are done. I think how I think about this is every time I have failure, and I've started writing actually a diary recently, where I think about what went well, what didn't go well today, personally and professionally both. And I kind of like, rehearse in my head, like if I had done this, how would the conversation or things would have progressed, and try to learn from it in some way.
Yeah. So you actively seek that process of looking back at failures and trying to understand what you can do better in the future.
Exactly. I sort of, I think, promise myself, I will not repeat my failure. I'll try my best not to repeat my failures or my mistakes.
Yeah. So one failure is fine, but making the same mistake twice is not acceptable, so to speak.
Yeah. Like I think every 3 years or so, I realize 3 years back, it seems like I don't know what I was thinking, why I did that. Like I cannot comprehend why I made some decisions down the line, which is weird. Like you might think like people think very rationally, but that's not how it works. People think rationally, but there are some unconscious decisions that you take, which you realize down the road.
Yeah. So that's when that's how you know that you're growing, right? When you look back and see, okay, what kind of things was I thinking back then? Like that can't be the way that I made decisions in that place. That's
so true. That's so true.
Probably a good sign. Yeah. So we already talked about what your story is and what you do for a living, and what does a normal day of you look like? So for people who don't know that, you're currently in San Francisco, so basically at the pulse of the tech industry, and it's probably interesting for people listening to find out how a typical day of yours looks like, because it's mostly this fantasy of a lot of people to live in the Silicon Valley and have your own company.
Yeah, would love to share. So I think my thing is slightly different because I have a distributed team. I have a team in India, I have a team in Ukraine, and team here. So my working hours are a bit weird. So I start like 9 a.m. in the morning. I have meetings till like my noon. So like non-stop meetings. Normally I have meetings, and then I go to office. I just walk to office. So my office is pretty close actually. So just walk to office, have lunch with my co-founder and the folks in the office. Discuss about the strategy, what are things working on, then probably spend I think 3-4 hours heads down coding or like some machine learning aspects like that I've been reading through today. So go through it, get myself up to speed, and normally there's some customer meeting or something like that. So like something like that, I go through it, and come back, then spend some time with the family, and then again I have a meeting at the night. So there's like a lot of meetings. If you see, I would say 50% coding and such, and setting a right expectation. I've tried to learn through the processes actually. One more thing. So when I was in these big company, I thought like, oh, these processes are stopping me. In some case it was, but in some case actually processes were meant to help us streamline me or sort of train me, which I've realized down the road. I sort of gained respect for the processes now.
Okay, yeah.
So that has been another learning. And yeah, that's been on my day. I normally sleep like around 1 a.m. or so. I get like 7 hours of solid sleep.
Yeah. Okay. So that's interesting. And you mentioned processes and how those work to streamline maybe your own behavior. Did you try to implement some of those processes in your own company? And what were those processes? And has it worked to kind of copy that and take it for yourself?
Yeah. So me and my co-founder, we're a big fan of Google culture. So we have our culture is very much inspired from Google culture. Okay. So we took what we believed were the best things, performance reviews, TGIFs, one-on-ones, open culture. Like anyone can ask any question to anyone. So, those sort of things we clearly borrowed from the best companies that we have worked with.
Yeah.
And we think that has helped. That has helped, especially in COVID, where our team is distributed. We don't want people to feel isolated. So, having these processes seems to be helping people, to get to know each other, to be more productive, ramp up fast.
Yeah. So building on that focus on culture and maybe getting a message out and trying to build something that puts a message out into the world. If you could have a gigantic billboard anywhere in the world, like where would it be and what would you write on it so that it's able to reach millions and millions of people?
Oh, gigantic billboard. That's a good one. I think I'll probably have it. I don't know. I'm inclined to say Silicon Valley, but like there's a lot of billboards here. Actually, you can see 4 billboards where I'm sitting right here.
Yeah.
So
I can imagine,
and I think what I would write is just one word, which is focus.
Okay.
Because people lose focus. People, kind of spend some time in discipline. I think focus and discipline is the most ignored thing I've realized, and it's I don't want to sound hypocrite, but like people lose focus over what matters. And start doing things that are on the fringes, and those are easy to do and such. But focus and discipline has been like very hard thing. My realization has been very hard for focus to actually focus on. So I just want to like focus with an underlying question mark. That's it. That's the only thing that matters.
Cool. Yeah. And follow-up question to that one: would you say that it's important to focus on one thing at a time, so to stop multitasking, or would you say that it's important generally to just limit your scope or your scope of awareness to one project? Or would you say, okay, it's okay to focus on different projects side by side, but as soon as you start working on one, you have to be completely focused on that one and leave the other ones at least at that moment behind?
I think there is a middle path. So you, especially as a startup founder, you are always working on 10 different things, always.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things
in your head. But I try to focus on thing at hand. So I'm a big fan of a process. I create a process, like I write my to-do list or like things I'm going to get done today, and I will go through it. But when I'm doing certain point in that list or like processing something, I will just focus on that until I'm like interrupted or like something happens. Otherwise, like I try to focus on those aspects. So I'm not interrupted and things goes through smoothly. I even like keep my phone on like silent mode for that same reason. So that gives me focus and execution. But there has to be like a middle way, as I said. Like you have to manage multiple things. You cannot just like do one thing and be done with it.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned the to-do list. Is there anything else that you do to personally organize yourself and to keep that focus alive?
I think disconnecting yourself with some tasks are also important. Like I have this OCD kind of thing. Oh, I'm working on this. Let's get it done. But some things are blocked on other people. And sometimes you can do a lot of effort to move it around and unblock people. But something that just takes time. I don't know. For instance, getting a driver license as an example. So you have to disconnect. Like some things are going to take time, and let's just be comfortable with it. So I have a list which is named beyond my control sort of thing. So where I have some items where like those are like not in my control and things will take time on that. So I feel disconnected, so I don't feel worried about it, sort of thing.
So you have different lists themed for different tasks that you're going to accomplish.
Yeah, exactly. So I have actually a structure. So I have like beyond my control, high priority thing. High priority is something that is I'm tracking at like say three month-ish time frame,
Okay.
3 to 6 month time frame, and then I have like a daily list.
Yeah.
So every day I kind of move stuff from high priority to daily list as and when required, and kind of try and accomplish them.
Okay.
And
so
then
high priority is where you kind of collect all the high priority items that you need to accomplish, and then you take those and put it on your day-to-day to-do list, so that you then know, okay, what am I going to accomplish from that high priority task today.
and I'm trying to like eliminate the daily list and just use calendar for that.
Yeah.
So like put everything in the calendar. So even I block time. So if suppose I have my daily list has say 10 items, so those 10 items should be on my calendar. So I have allotted a piece of time for them. It's
Okay,
not
yeah.
like, I might have 20 items, but they will never fit in my calendar, as an example. So I'm trying to, use that structure for some time. And these are like both personal and professional work. So
Okay,
if I have to go do grocery, that is also on my list.
Yeah, and it's also high priority probably.
Yeah, that's true.
So we're a students group, as I already mentioned. And what would you tell, or what would you say to a student who's about to graduate and enter the real world? What would your advice be, maybe even to a student who is interested in founding his own company and entrepreneurship?
First of all, I envy you guys. There's so many resources right now. I think like it's a great time to graduate. People might say about COVID and such, but I think in a few years it'll be done and we'll be behind this. But I think focus on what is important to you, or like what gets you going. I would say focus on that. I've known people who get a job at XYZ company. They're paying high, say high frequency trading company, like a Wall Street company, for the only sole purpose that they were paying the highest money to start with, or like the salary was the highest. But I would not recommend. I would not recommend it. And personally, from my own failures, I can tell you, where I've tried to go after money, things have never worked out. Money always came as a corollary of what I was doing or what I loved doing.
Can you maybe give an example of that, when it was the case that you followed the money and it went bad?
Like without naming anyone, I interviewed the company, which I thought was pretty cool company. They were also in this trading space.
Yeah.
And they had like 10 rounds of interview and they liked me. But by 10th interview, I realized that, okay, I cannot work here. This will never work out. So wasted like one weekend traveling to their place and like interviewing them. Same goes with my team. So like I loved my team in Google, and I joined them because I just love chatting with them. I met them. I really enjoyed the conversation. I thought like this will be a cool place to work with, and I loved it. Like I think, and personally also, and monetarily also, it was a good decision. But I just joined them because I just thought like these are really smart, cool people who love to work with them and make something pretty cool. So I think that worked out pretty fine. So that has been my experience, to be honest. Maybe like some people it might have worked if you bought crypto at the right time. Yeah, money happened. So it depends on situation by situation, I guess.
Okay, yeah, but just to sum up, like, well, in one sentence, what would you tell this guy who's about to graduate and has no idea where to start or where to go?
I would say find your interest. And actually, there's a book, Designing Your Life. Read that book. Find your interest and follow your interest. As simple as that.
Great, thank you. In the last 5 years, so you're pretty young, like we already mentioned, otherwise you wouldn't be a Forbes 30 under 30. In the last 5 years, what new behavior, habit, or maybe belief has positively impacted your life? Like it might be in business, it might be at building your company, but it might also be in personal life, or like you said, writing a diary or stuff like that.
So I think I had this behavior where I could just work non-stop without eating and drinking for like 10 hours. And that's just me, but that's not how everyone can do it. And people need, sunshine. And, those sort of stuff. And then I thought like, maybe it's just like, gimmickry, but actually they really need it. It's a human need. So I've accepted that. I've accepted that their needs are different. As a leader, I have to accept that and try to lead them in a way it's like most optimal approach for the company and for me as well. So that's been my learning, accepting people and leading them that benefits themselves as well as us as a company.
Okay, yeah. So, and we already talked about like why you wanted to build a company, but I want to dive a little deeper on that one and ask you maybe if you could quantify or tell us what really was the motivation. So you already said, okay, I had this interest in tech, I had this interest in entrepreneurship, I had this picture of me in my mind being an entrepreneur. But is there something that you can explicitly tell what it was that actually drove you towards that? Like, was it, okay, making a positive impact on the world? Was it building your own thing, making up the rules in that system, or what was it?
I think it was like making my own rule, but it was the impact. Like I believed I wanted to have a larger impact, and I thought these processes were stopping me.
Yeah.
As simple as that. I think like I thought I can do away with these processes, set up my own version, and be better at it. I think I was a bit naive back then, but the impact has definitely increased if you see, because as a software engineer, you're just focused on your thing. Although that thing might be making $100 million for Google, but your still scope is very limited. You're working on product, maybe with PMs and such, and leading like a small piece. As an entrepreneur, your scope is everything. Everything is your problem. Me and my co-founder discuss almost everything. So the scope and impact and learning has been amazing. So there's no, I would say, like a bulb went in my head and I decided like, let's be an entrepreneur. I think it was a journey over the years I've realized. I've been chatting with my friends and like acquaintances who have taken this path before me. They shared how their story went, positive or negatively. So that gave me a perspective, and I thought like, I think I want to try that out. That seems interesting. That will give me an impact, an opportunity. Basically, it's an opportunity to start something.
Okay. Your area of expertise, so to speak, is especially tech and entrepreneurship. And is there any bad advice? We already talked about the students what advice you would give to a student who's about to graduate, but is there any bad advice that you hear frequently given in your area of expertise? So is there anything that you see people over and over saying to people who are maybe younger, maybe less advanced in their career paths, that they shouldn't hear because it's just not the way you see it?
So I think my area of expertise is artificial intelligence, and people are actually abusing this word in my book. They're using everything to just say it's an artificial intelligence.
Yeah. Okay.
So I would say don't overuse that word. I would say understand things behind it. And anyone who's being a thought leader or something and writing about it, follow the key people. And there are like, just Google it. It'll be pretty obvious like who are the top people who are working in this field, and follow them instead of just following the fluff and just the trend. I think the concrete skills matter and will take you places in artificial intelligence. There's a lot of difference. Like people who are just doing, like calling a function, as an example, in terms of coding, is calling themselves an artificial intelligence expert, and they're like people who are doing deep tech research.
Yeah, like import TensorFlow one line in Python or something else.
Exactly. So you probably want to listen to the other set of folks. What is my recommendation?
Okay. Yeah. What would be those folks? Like you said, okay, we can Google those, but what, from your perspective, who are those people that we should follow or that we should listen to?
I think there's like some top names. I think Jeff Dean, Jan from Facebook, Andrew Ng, Tom Mitchell, and there's like some highly respected folks that I personally follow and actually read their newsletters and posts and such.
Okay.
And some very fascinating research is coming out from the research group. So I would highly recommend you guys following that.
Okay, great. Okay, that's a pretty generic question, but I find it interesting nonetheless. Are there traits that you see over and over? So you have a lot of friends who are entrepreneurs, you have a lot of people in your network in general who are entrepreneurs. And do you see traits in those people or some kind of patterns that you would say, okay, those are patterns that I can see that predict if someone is going to make it or not? And if yes, then what are those traits? You already mentioned, okay, focus, discipline, but are there maybe some other traits, or would you even count that to being an entrepreneur, or is that just a more general trait?
I think there's definitely some traits at a high level. I think being a hustler or finding your way through things is actually, I think, a key trait in my opinion.
Okay.
Key trait. I'd say then there are more role-specific traits. Being able to, execute is, I would say, second most important trait in my opinion. Because people can talk about stuff, but execution is a different ballgame.
Yeah.
Making a product, working with customers, reaching out to customers is a different product. So that's execution is the thing. And I think execution is really important. And that will make a difference between, DoorDash and delivery dudes. Both of them were started in the same time frame, where DoorDash is, and probably have never heard of delivery dudes. So that's the difference. And third one I would say is people who are, great entrepreneurs. And that's been like my observation. I'm not
Yeah, of course.
saying like it's an expectation, but they realize it early enough. It's about the people. It's not about cool tech. It's not about, money as such. It's about the people. Your job is, to enable people to lead them and get the job done via them. Because if I work, I'll probably work with like 4x, 5x speed and like be done with it. That's the limitation.
Yeah.
But if I'm able to set the right vision, if I'm able to get the right set of folks involved and execute better, then it amplifies. It really amplifies. So it's about the people and hire the best. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, cool. Yeah. A little more specific one of the question: what purchase of $100 or less has most positively impacted your life in the last year?
I would say it's a Raspberry Pi 4B.
Okay.
So
cool.
so I think that's pretty cool. Like I was not plugged into this IoT space last year, but like spent some time on this. Amazing stuff. You can do some really cool things with $100.
Yeah.
With Raspberry Pi.
Okay. Yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah. If you had the chance to talk to yourself, so now you're a little more advanced in your career, maybe you can look back and say, okay, when I was 20 years old, maybe you were about to graduate or in your university studies or something, what would you tell yourself? Like if you could rent a time machine and just drive back for a minute and talk to yourself.
I would, I would tell myself to focus on certain aspects. I think I went all over the place. I did a lot of stuff and a lot of stuff didn't pan out. So I would, and I learned from it, but I would recommend myself, my younger self, to double down a few things and cut on a few things without going into specific. Like, don't waste time in doing XYZ as an example. So focus on this. It matters more and would take you places, and have trust that things will work out. Because as you know, as you're young, you're just graduating, you have a lot of anxiety. How is this world going to be? Okay. Does the party ends here? Like, that's what I heard. Like college was a party.
Yeah.
So what happened after that? So I think ease myself into that. Those would be my recommendation. And I've obviously, if I can tell myself about the Bitcoin, that would be pretty cool as well.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Yeah. What would be the things, or what would be some examples that you would choose to cut on, or that you would tell yourself to cut out of your life, maybe a little bit earlier, if you're fine with sharing that?
Like as an example, like, I will tell myself, like, you would enjoy technical aspects, so focus more on that. Don't focus on, say, some of the managerial aspect, like early on. Like I prepared for some competitive exam back in the day, which even I didn't spend a lot of time, and to be honest, it was a waste of time and money. So like, would probably cut on that as an example. I would also tell myself to focus on my health. Your mind and body is your thing. You need it for a very long duration, and you only have one.
Yeah.
So focus on that. And that would be my second recommendation.
Okay. Yeah. So like you said earlier, going out a little bit and not working 10 hours a day and then sleeping 7 and then repeating that every day. So now we're getting near the end of the interview, and I think it has been really interesting, at least to me. And we're going to switch now to the Zoom room for everybody who's watching, so that then people can ask you your questions personally. Just a little bit of information for the people watching. How this is going to work is I'm going to post the link in the chat right now, which is the following. And you can join us there and we'll let you in. And depending on how many people actually show up, we will either just have a group conversation, or we will take people for the questions that they have, so that they can ask them yourself or themselves. And you can find the link in the description as well. So you can join. If you just now that we end the stream, you won't be able to see the chat, so that you can still find the link. It's also in the description. And then we are happy to see you in our Zoom call. So once again, we are the PionierGarage, which is the students group at the KIT for entrepreneurship and startups. And you can follow our social media and our on LinkedIn and on Instagram. And this is Gaurav Aggarwal, the CTO and co-founder of Sleek and a Forbes 30 under 30. And we're happy to see you in a minute. So then, see you.